And we meet again. It's one day later, just like I said previously. And it's time for a spoiler alert. Yes, if you have not yet watched The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I would advise you to probably click off this video now until you have. We're going to spoil a lot of things that we were not able to talk about in the review yesterday. That did actually go almost 30 minutes, so we talked a lot about it yesterday, and we're just going to go further into everything and talk about some of the questions a lot of the fans of the series are asking right now. Does the same thing happen in the comics like in the movie, and vice versa? So, AJ, spoiler alert for our second time, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Take it away.
I am not quite sure where to start, so the first thing I guess I want to mention is the fact that there are really small roles in this movie played by B.J. Novak and Felicity Jones. And apparently, I think I mentioned in the other review that B.J. Novak was cast like really last minute.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they were like trying to hide something or what, but apparently, this is no news to people, the comic fans, obviously, but apparently they're supposed to be big characters.
Yes, that's supposedly.
It's never really touched on in the movie, except that Felicity Jones basically becomes Harry's little minion.
Mm-hmm.
And B.J. Novak obviously works at Oscorp as a leader of sorts, because he gets to push Max Dillon around. So, apparently, B.J. Novak is supposed to play a character that eventually creates something called Spider Slayers.
Yes.
It's never hinted at in the movie, really. His character is just kind of there, but I'm assuming he's there to build up to it. Sometimes movies just like to throw in that stuff.
Yeah. Just
because the characters exist, you know, like there was always the debate, and when Spider-Man 2 came out and Raimi's movie came out, whether or not Dylan Baker was ever actually going to be the Lizard, or he was just there. It's hard, but judging by this movie, it's hard to say if they're gonna do all this time. They're already contracted for 4, aren't they?
Yeah, Novak himself actually said that he's not sure if it's going to be an important character or not down the line, but right now he's not as important as he could be down the line as possible.
And there is the, apparently Felicity Jones becomes a character named Black Cat.
Yes.
I am not sure what that character does or who it is.
That is a big put over for the Spider-Man fans out there.
Yes, I'm sure the comic fans know. There's been a question who is going to be Jameson. Apparently, we talked about this earlier, I think. Everybody wants J.K. Simmons to come back.
I think it's the perfect casting. I don't think you mess with perfection.
I've heard a lot of people suggest Stephen Lang, which I think is also a really good idea.
I wouldn't have an issue with that.
Or it could just be somebody totally off the wall. But either way, it's going to be hard for them to do it without doing a J.K. Simmons impression, basically. So, I guess, like I said before, they tease it in this movie. We see his name on a newspaper, and he starts to take pictures of Spider-Man, but we still have yet to actually meet the character yet.
He actually, Peter just sends an email, and all of a sudden, he sends an email to Jameson, and immediately the email returns with no. I thought that was funny. No, wrong.
Speaking of no wrong, there was a rumor for a little while. It seemed ridiculous, and I never really latched onto it. But apparently, a rumor got blown out of proportion that Jim Carrey was spotted on the set of this movie.
Yeah.
And apparently, the rumor that got out was he was going to play the guy that becomes Carnage.
That would have been interesting.
I don't think it's going to surprise you, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. Jim Carrey is not in this movie.
No.
Nor is that character.
No.
So I think Cletus Cassidy is his name.
Yeah, he's also in the Amazing Spider-Man 2 video game, but he's not actually in the movie.
Yeah, I remember when the PlayStation 2 game for Raimi's movie came out, there's all kinds of, like, I think Electra and the Vulture in that movie. We'll get to the Sinister Six movie towards the end of this video.
Yes.
So the next thing that you're just itching to talk about, apparently the big question comic fans had about this movie was, well, first and foremost, obviously Shailene Woodley actually filmed scenes for this movie.
That's correct.
As Mary Jane Watson. which clearly sets up Peter's going to be switching love interests. Obviously. So, which I wasn't aware of what order this was in, because obviously Bryce Dallas Howard's version of Gwen Stacy's Spider-Man 3 was a worthless character.
Yes.
And had nothing to really do with anything except to piss MJ off. But apparently the actual story is it was Gwen Stacy first, Gwen Stacy bites it, and then Mary Jane comes in.
Correct. And
everybody's question is that the way Mark Webb's going to do it? Well, for starters, I think people started to get a little not unsure because Shailene Woodley's scenes were completely cut.
Yep.
He completely took Mary Jane out of this movie because he thought there were too many characters in it.
He also wanted to focus more on Emma Stone.
Yeah, he wanted to focus on Peter and Gwen without any interruption, I guess. Which is really good. I think that's what made the love story between them so potent in the movie. It wasn't like contrived shit getting in the way of it. It was actual... It felt as real as a story can feel in a Spider-Man movie, I guess.
Yeah.
So the question is, does Gwen Stacy die while Spider-Man's trying to save her? Not only does that happen, but it's a little more brutal in this movie than I had initially heard.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're revisiting the end of The Great Mouse Detective, and we're fighting inside a clock tower. That's immediately what I thought of.
89 Batman.
And Great Mouse Detective did it first.
That's true.
So, and they were in a church. This is an actual clock tower with gears and shit. The gears are what do her in.
Yeah, literally.
So, Dick Tracy as well.
Yes.
So, what happens here, to my understanding, of all people, I was talking to a girl who was a comic book fan. It's weird to have, the other way around. But she was telling me that what happens is he tries to save Gwen, and somehow her neck gets snapped by accident.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that's what happened here, but I think a lot of other things happened to her as well.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, we have... I'm going to talk to you like you haven't seen it, even though, of course, you've seen it if you're watching this video, unless you don't give a shit. Obviously, he uses his web to kind of just have her, no pun intended, hang out there while he fights Harry.
Yeah.
But the problem is they're in a fucking clock tower, so things are going to keep basically cutting her off. The first part is when the glider detaches from him and takes her out, but he manages to save her again by attaching another web to her. But the trouble is while he's fighting Harry, the gears come around and one of them cuts the web. And I really like where this was going, because while I was watching it, I forgot that there was a possibility that Gwen was going to bite it.
Yeah.
So, and I love the fact that they really, especially audience members that don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
Audience members who don't see this coming, this is a really fucking cruel thing to do. Which is good, because people are getting on its case for being too happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Gwen is plunging to her demise. He's knocked Harry out. And he's falling down towards her, and he unleashes a web. And it's basically a race to whether or not the web can get to her in time. After a lot of slow-mo and a lot of build-up, the web does reach her and attach to her.
But
it's just a few seconds too late, and they're just a little farther down than they should have been. I don't know that I heard a neck snap, but the back of her head is fucking gone. And it's her. I really want to see this in a packed theater to see the reaction to that.
And we're going to. That was a vicious sound, too.
I can't wait to see a crowd's reaction to that.
I love the way this is shot, too.
And that's the thing, though. I seem like I'm really reveling in how brutal it was, but it's obviously a really heartbreaking scene.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's not so much what happened that I'm reveling in, it's the fact that they had the balls to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they could have killed her another way. They could have killed her a less violent way.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think they amped it up what they were supposed to do. I'm not sure how the neck snapping worked in the comics. I didn't actually see that, but I imagine it was something like this. Because from what I heard, it was while he was trying to save her life that it happened.
And it was a clock tower, too.
So, comic movies love their clock towers.
Yes.
So, it's a great place for an ending fight, though, especially inside it.
Supposedly the clock stops at the exact time of 121, and that was the comic book that Gwen died in.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I was reading that the other day.
And then you get the heartbreaking shot where...
Oh, God.
He's holding her and doing his breakdown, and we see... It seriously looks like the cover of a comic book,
yeah.
where he's holding her and he's in the suit, but he's taking the mask off. And... Now that we talk about that, I want to continue to talk about how much I fucking love Dane DeHaan's Green Goblin.
Oh my god.
Like I mentioned before, I love the laugh. The voice is what really gets me. What I really love is he doesn't say anything. We know in the earlier scene he says, they're talking about whether or not he has a girlfriend. Mm-hmm. And he says, I'm seeing somebody. And when he asks who, he's like, Gwen Stacy? And Harry remembers this because... Harry arrives on the glider after Electra has just been killed. And he comes between them, and he's ready to kill Spider-Man to get revenge because Spider-Man wouldn't give him his blood. And he stops and he realizes that Gwen's there. And there's that moment where we see him turn, and he assesses the situation. He realizes Spider-Man's here, Gwen is here. And he looks at them both a couple of times because we see him piecing it together.
Yeah. And
then just the way he turns and he does that sinister chuckle. And just the way he says, Peter. Before he even takes the mask off, he knows that it's him because of the situation. I just thought that was an awesome way to reveal it. Mind you, I don't know if it's a really, really great scene in Raimi's movie when Harry actually unmasks him. But I thought this was just as effective because he didn't even have to unmask him, he just knew. I thought that was also really effective. Probably more effective than the Franco scene.
You had the foreshadowing, of course, in Oscorp when they're sharing the elevator together. And he's starting to piece together who she is at that point as well. Yeah. And then, of course, you go completely away from it until the very end and it comes back.
So, I mean, yeah, he does have some cliche lines, like, you could see the line, Harry's dead, coming from a mile away, but, I just love that whole big finale. And like I was saying, I imagine people are going to get really pissed if they're impatient because of how many endings this movie has, because you have the big showdown with Electro. And there's the big... They finally realize what they need to do, and they overcharge him, and Electro explodes, and we see his little thing just kind of die, and then we know Electro's done. And this is where a normal movie would be ending.
Yep.
Like, for all we know, we see Harry put on the suit and get on the glider, and then we'd see the deformed face and the eye open and all that. I'm glad they didn't because I love the movie the way it is. Mm-hmm. That could have been the last shot of Harry for this movie, and it would have been a cliffhanger ending.
Yeah.
And it would have worked just fine. But, I kind of like the whole... A lot of people don't realize this. And this is what I was saying that pisses me off so much about trailers, which is why I avoided them. Just like when I saw the news that the still of Dane DeHaan's face had been revealed, I did my best to fucking avoid that picture because I knew the trailers and all the promotion was going to be so fucking spoilery.
I accidentally saw it one day.
So, and then you said apparently they put it in some of the more recent trailers.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Luckily, it was after we saw it, but I saw a poster recently that had his face on it.
The last fight in the movie is actually one of the last scenes in the new trailer, which is wonderful.
This is what's really interesting to me, is imagine going into a theater playing that trailer long before the movie came out. Imagine if audiences knew that before we even see... A lot of people complained there were too many villains in this movie, and they were overdoing that. Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing, though, is... The first time we see Harry as the Goblin, the first time we see him, Electra's already dead.
Yeah.
So, just as we see... There's even that sigh of relief when the score comes on, and, you know, after we see... It's in the same shot, after Electra's thing just kind of shorts out and goes black, we see Peter laying there, and he does the this is finally over grunt, and he stands up and everything's okay. He's going to go get Gwen. There's still half an hour of this movie left. And I don't think people are going to realize that.
People that saw the trailer and paid close attention are probably going to be like, okay, what happened to these other scenes? Like, I remember seeing the Rhino, and he's not shown up yet. And I thought I saw the glider, and it's not happened yet.
That's another reason I stopped watching trailers. It's the whole... You see trailers so many times. You spend the movie watching, I'm looking for those movies now.
It's an issue. It really is. Especially with superhero movies. It blows a lot of spots.
Yeah, so that made it a lot better for me to watch this. But people are going to think it's over when Electra dies. And then, of course, there's the big fight with Harry, which is also awesome.
Such a tease, though.
More is coming.
Oh, I know it is.
And then Gwen dies, and it's this, this big tragic ending, and we have her funeral, and then basically... And this is the thing. This is another thing. There's always that moment where he quits being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Like in Raimi's second movie, it was halfway through the movie. And then he had to, come back, and then, the big ending. The movie is literally over when we have the storyline of he quits being Spider-Man. Just when you think the movie will probably end with Gwen's funeral, the way Raimi's first movie ended with Norman's funeral.
Yep.
We have the whole bit about him quitting. And then we have the whole arc of him coming back because of the Rhino.
And bringing the little kid back, too, from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, so, and then we have this, and of course they build it up to be, we're going to have yet another action scene where he's fighting the Rhino. But I really loved how they did that, because that whole scene, I think, is amazing. Like I said, people will probably practically be out the door by this point. But if you're not there for this ending, or if you're not fully invested when you get to this ending, you're really missing out, because this ending's fucking beautiful. He decides he's not going to be Spider-Man because losing Gwen has basically ruined his life temporarily. But then we get the scene where we see the guy. Now, here's the thing. I don't know how many people knew this always or not, but at the end of the first movie, with Mark Webb's first movie, after the Lizard was captured, there was an after-credits scene where Risa Fons is visited in prison by a guy in the shadows that's, twitching. And he's played by Michael Massey, the guy from The Crow. And I believe when that movie came out, the assumption was that was Norman Osborn. Apparently it wasn't. Apparently this guy is a whole new character that is they name drop him at the very end when he arrives to talk to Harry. And I guess he's in charge of the Sinister Six is what they're building up to.
That's what it looks like.
Because I Googled this guy's name, and that didn't help very much. I have no idea who this character is. I assume he's a comic book character, though. He's in the comics. But, sorry, I'm not savvy to this, you people who are beating your monitors right now. But,
those things are expensive. Don't break them.
They don't care.
I'll buy another one.
So, he shows up, and we still don't see his face, even though we know what Michael Massey looks like.
Yeah.
And they basically set up, and I thought that was going to be the end, was he was saying, I got it, we'll make Paul Giamatti the Rhino, and here's the suit. But we have our arc where the Rhino's released, and he's wrecking havoc, and Peter comes back. But the kid is standing there in his suit. I believe there's a similar scene in one of the Iron Man movies. Iron Man 2, I believe.
Yep, exactly.
And he's in the costume, and he's basically, this little kid thinks he can fight the Rhino because he's in a Spider-Man costume. Clearly this would not end well. But then you have that magical moment. It's cheesy, obviously, but who cares? It's a really nice, blockbustery, magical moment.
Yeah, exactly.
When Peter taps on the kid's shoulder and says, why don't you let me take it from here? In that great scene where he's really building up to this fight with the Rhino, where he's basically decided he's going to be Spider-Man again. And they really, really make that a great moment when his return is punctuated with him saying, there's no place like home. And he is charging towards the Rhino is charging towards him, and it looks like it's going to be this big battle. And I went back and looked. My problem continues. This amazing show. Once again, I'm so glad I didn't watch trailers. I heard them, but I didn't see them. The magnificent, amazing, no pun intended, last shot of this movie is all over the goddamn trailer.
Yeah, it really is.
Of him bringing the manhole cover down onto the rhino, and the screen goes black. And the theme comes on, and we see the logo. That ending is one of my favorite endings I've seen in a long time. I don't care if the movie was too long up to that point, and I don't care if people think it's cheesy and they don't care. I fucking love that moment, that whole scene. So, that's like, I can't wait to be in a packed theater and people will be groaning that the movie's still on, and I'll be just waiting for that fucking epic moment again.
Absolutely.
That's the right word I was looking for. That scene is fucking epic. That moment is. Where he's flying through the air and he's dodging whatever the fuck the rhino's shooting at him. That whole, like,
the rhino in the end of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, it gives me a very big Incredibles vibe. I've thought that ever since I watched the movie the first time, and I was like, you know, this reminds me of the Underminer at the end. How he literally just shows up and that's it.
Yeah, there was a guy that, after I had seen it, there was a guy that asked me something. Mm-hmm. He didn't care if it was spoiled because he wanted to know about a future movie. He asked me about Electra's fate. He was shocked when I told him that Electra dies. Electra's not coming back.
No.
And I didn't even think about it, but when he told me that, his response was, what are they doing about the Sinister Six? But there is, I didn't pick up on this for a minute. I mean, I saw some of them, but I didn't realize this is what they were hinting at. Mm-hmm. When you watch the end credits, with like Mark Webb's name and the producers and all them, and Stanley and all that.
Yeah, the Alicia Keys song.
Yeah. It's, graphics of Oscorp prototypes of the Sinister Six. Mm-hmm. Like, you see Vulture's wings, you see Dr. Octopus's claws, and you read me who all supposed to be. Obviously, apparently they're just going to do the Sinister Six, it's just not going to have Electro.
Yeah.
Is what they're doing.
Yeah, you've got Vulture, you've got Kraven the Hunter, you've got who could either be either Mysterio or the Chameleon.
So,
with the ones you just mentioned, and if you notice when they're walking by at the end, you see the Vulture's wings, and you see what the mechanism Dr. Octopus will have. There's also something that people may pick up on. I'm sure a lot of comic book fans will. There's 7 spots there, so that could end up being Venom, or that could end up being Carnage. This is a very good possibility of either one of them. This
franchise will continue to go strong, so I was not excited for this one because of the first one, but now that I've seen this one, I'm very excited to see what they do next.
Sinister Six is supposed to be a redemption film. It's going to be villain heavy, and I don't know exactly how they're going to pull that off.
Yeah, it'll be...
I'm really looking forward to see what they're going to do with that. I think if it was me, I would go ahead and open the movie, open 3 on the fight with the Rhino and just finish that. And once it's finished, then you bring in Mary Jane Watson, and then we start that storyline. So many directions you can go after.
I don't see how they can't start the third one with the fight with the Rhino. I mean, unless the movie starts and he's in prison again.
That's a possibility. Looking like a character from Grand Theft Auto, like he did previously. Yeah, this movie is just a comic book fan's dream. Honestly, it's everything you want it to be, and then some. And I'm a Batman guy, obviously, but I mean, this movie's great. And I give complete recommendation of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I love the first one, but I like Mark Webb's work, so I mean, that's just me. But
because you like one other movie he did. Yeah. That's the only other movie he's done.
Still, I mean, this being his...
which, coincidentally enough, had Clark Gregg in it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a coincidence after all.
So...
For a lot of reasons.
So I think
that was great. Yeah. High complete recommendation. Judging the 3D scenes real quick, if you're wanting to see it, whether you should see it in 3D or 2D or IMAX or IMAX 3D.
I actually didn't even mention this. Shit.
Yeah.
We're
not done yet. So
in the 25 minutes we've just spent, and then the half hour I spent before I didn't even mention this.
It's an hour talking about Spider-Man, folks. Woo!
One of the things I really didn't like about the first one was the really shoddy effects.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say that about Raimi's first movie too.
Yeah.
A huge improvement here. The
Oh,
effects
absolutely.
are like practically flawless, and the swinging scenes are a lot more insert
to a grand scale, more so than before. I will say, like I said, the movie is brilliantly shot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for example, I know we're going backwards all the way to the end, but the second that web just goes, and then you see just a split second, and it's like time stopping. It's like Zack Snyder's biggest dream come true. And you see her falling, and it's just like brilliantly shot. And then when Peter dives down for her, you get the POV shot of him like staring, making sure that the web connects with her in time, and it just doesn't. And that scene, that crack, oh my god, it's just such an intense. And I will say that if you wanted to end it on Gwen's funeral, I'd say the final words would have been definitely her speech. That would have been the right way to end it if there wasn't more to go.
That also gives Sally Field a really good thing too.
Absolutely. Your Stan Lee cameo too at the graduation.
Yeah, his cameos are getting a lot more talky lately.
Yeah, didn't start out that way, and now he's starting to get lines.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that or not, but we'll see what happens.
So yeah, that is definitely a tremendously glaring recommendation for The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Even though I'm sure it's going to be panned by a lot of people.
I'm sure it will be too. I will say right now that your next spoiler alert will be our next superhero film in a couple weeks, which is X-Men Days of Future Past. Which would be fun to talk about that.
Maybe Godzilla.
Really? Okay.
Maybe, depends.
We may have a Godzilla, potentially. Who knows?
After we watch it, we'll decide.
Yeah, we'll decide on that. So, since we've talked about The Amazing Spider-Man for an hour, make your own conclusions. But like I said before you got started on that, did you think it needs to be watched in 3D, 2D, or IMAX 3D, or does it matter?
I'm sure you'll get a great enjoyment regardless.
Yeah, but is the extra money worth it in this case? In your opinion?
I don't think it would hurt.
No.
But I think it's a movie that's just so good by itself. It's really, you're going to get great enjoyment out of it no matter, well, you know, if you see it from my perspective.
My perspective.
You might hate it, but
it's possible. Who knows?
We'll have some arguing to do if I find you and you hate it.
Yeah, it's a good possibility. And
I won't hurt you, I promise.
No.
We'll just argue a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to have a little bantering back and forth. It's all good-hearted, no problem.
No, find a comics fan. They'll be the ones that want to hurt you.
Yeah, most likely.
Probably some comic fans who hate the movie for whatever reason. That for things I didn't even notice that will come after me. So fuck them. I don't care.
That's great parting words for this video.
Give me your downvotes all you want. I will take them gladly. I will eat them for fucking dessert while I watch The Amazing Spider-Man 2 again.
Yes! Amazing Spider-Man 2 is amazing. Go watch
your downvotes will be my popcorn every time I watch it.
So yeah, basically what we're trying to say is go watch the movie and enjoy yourself. So, AJ, any parting words?